Hi guys, and welcome to this course. In this course, I will cover the REST API integration in a Flutter application. But before that, I tell you more about this course, let me introduce myself. My name is Hadi and I have a master's degree in computer and communication engineering, and currently I'm working as a data scientist. I am a 5 stars rated instructor here on Udemy, and I have several courses related to Flutter. I will leave this link for you in the description so you can check my courses out. Moreover, I worked for a while as a mobile developer and I learned about Flutter, then I decided to share my knowledge with you. Now, let's come back to this course main features. In this course, I covered many interesting topics such as HTTP requests, error handling, on-scroll pagination, theming, and more. In the next tutorial, I will show you how our application works and show you the features. Now let me talk a little bit about this course requirement, and of course don't forget to read the description. So about the description, you can find it here, so in the course main page, and of course read it and you'll know what you will learn in this course, and it will answer a lot of your questions. Now let me come back about this course requirements. So this course actually is for beginners. And beginners means that you need to know a little bit about Flutter widgets. So you need to be familiar with the Flutter widgets in order to follow along with this course. But if you don't know anything about the REST API, of course, it's not a problem. And for the state management, it's also not a problem at all. But I just want you to be familiar with some Flutter widgets in order to not find difficulty in the UI section. Hi guys, and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, I will show you how our application works. So when the user opens up the application for the first time, this screen will be the main screen, and it will be shown first. At the beginning, we have this text field for searching, then we have the sale widget, then we have the latest products in here, and I'm showing only 3 different products. If the user wants to see any products detail, he can press here, and then we will have a carousel in here that the user can see multiple images for each product. And note that this will be a fake API, so the data will not be 100% correct, but this will be good for practicing. Now, if I go back and press on this item, for example, we have also this product. Now I will go back. If the user wants to see all of the products, he can press on this button. And then if I scroll down, now I arrived until the end of this list and I fetched more items. And this behavior is called pagination. And it's very popular in the recent apps such as Amazon, AliExpress, and so on. So when you scroll more, you will fetch more items. So if I scroll down now, I fetched more, and now here it is. And every time I'm scrolling more, I'm printing this response. So now if I try to scroll again, I arrived until the end. I'm getting more results. So now here it is. Okay. And of course, this will be covered also in this course. Now let's go back. I don't know if you noticed or not, but we have animation between the screens. So when I navigate to another screen, I used a fading animation. Now, if the user, for example, wants to see the other users inside of the application, he can press here and he will see the other workers or customers here. And then if he wants to see the categories, it will be available in here. Now, the user cannot see the products per categories. I will not implement it in this course, but I already covered it in my other course on Udemy, which is this one, the Flutter grocery app with Firebase. I covered a lot of topics and it is around 18 hours. So if you want more advanced things, you can check this course, but it is related to Firebase, not the REST API. And this course will be dedicated for the beginners and advanced level and the Flutter, or for people who doesn't know anything about the REST API, where I explained everything in details. So I think That's it for this tutorial. This is all what we have in our application. So I'll see you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you like this course. And if you like it, please leave a 5 stars rating. See you. Hey guys, so in this tutorial, I want to tell you that you can find the starter source code, the UI source code, and the full source code on GitHub. So I will leave the links for you in the description, and I strongly recommend you to clone the starter source code to start along with me and to have the same structure. So in here, I added the assets folder and I set up the theme and so on. So you can see it in here. And I explained everything later on in this section. So I strongly recommend you to clone this starter project to follow along with me, and don't forget to start it to reach the maximum number of persons. Now for the second one, this one contains the design. So with this source code, you will have everything until the design. And for the third one, in here, it contains the full source code until the last lecture of this course. Okay, so of course, I will leave these links for you in the description, and see you soon in the next tutorials. Hi guys, and welcome to this section. So in this section, we will implement the UI part of our application. Anyways, this code, you can find it on GitHub, so feel free to clone it if you wanna code along with me. Of course, the link, you will find it attached to the resources, and if you are watching this course on YouTube, you will find it available in the description below. So now I will walk you through what I did in here, because I set up the theme and I added the assets, the images that we will be using. So here, the application, it will look like this. So what I did basically is that I initialized or create a brand new project, and then I set up the theme and the main.dart file. So in here, of course, I changed the title, and for the debug banner, I removed it from here because I don't want to see it. So in here, I initialized the theme, and if you don't know anything about the theme, I have a clearly explained tutorial on my YouTube channel about how to implement dark and light themes in a very efficient way, and also covered how can you use shared preference in order to save the theme state. So of course, this link also you will find it attached to the resources, or you will find it in the description if you are watching on YouTube. Now let's go back to our code, and in here I added this scaffold background color. To make things clearer for you, I will choose in here colors.red, for example, and now if I save it, the scaffold background color will directly change. And this will be helpful for us because we don't have to come to the screen that we are in it, and in the scaffold in here, we don't have to type, for example, each time background and specify the color. So in here, if I say, for example, colors dot, let's say anything blue, and then hit save, it will become blue. But I don't want to change it every time like this. So this is why I set up the theme directly from here. Now, if you are wondering where are these colors coming from, I added in here a folder, and inside of this folder, we have this file, and in this file I initialized some hex colors that I really like to set up our theme. Okay, and in the main I just assign it to it, and this way is really recommended. So later on, if you want to change something, or if you have multiple themes, you can come to this file directly and then you can change it from here. Now I want to talk about something else. For example, I set up the appBar theme, and this appBar theme, it will be available for all the appBars. And later on, when we start implementing our appBars, I will show you how can we manipulate it and how can we benefit from this code. Okay, so I will come back to this code later on and explain it more for you. So all of these lines belong to the theme. And as I said, if you are new to all of these, you can watch my tutorial on the YouTube and everything will become clearer for you. Now, as the home, we have the home screen. And anyway, I will restart the application just to revert the changes. So as I said, now we have the home screen, and the home screen, you can find it in the folder called screens. And in here, we have this home screen. So about this screen, as you can see, we have this text. And of course, we have a scaffold, and I put it in the center for this text. Of course, this text will be removed in the next sessions. And if you are wondering about this gesture detector, don't worry about it now. Later on, it will become clearer when we initialize the text field. So now one more thing, I added this asset folder, and inside of it we have this images folder. I added 4 different images that we will use later on in our application. And of course, these path must be added to the assets inside of our pubspec.yaml file. Of course, if you are experienced in Flutter, you can just add the images path like this and remove all of these, and now you can have access to any of these images also. But to make it clear for you, I will just keep it like this. Okay, so what I'm gonna do before that I end this tutorial is to copy this, and now for example I'll say or in here, and then I'll paste it for you like this. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we will start implementing the appBar of our application, and it will look something like this. And as I said, we already set up the theme for the appBar, so I strongly recommend you to try to implement it by yourself because it will directly look something similar to this. So I'll see you in the next tutorial. Hello guys. In this tutorial, we will start implementing the appBar, and we'll use custom icons. So for that, we require a new package, which is called Flutter Iconly. This package is for icons, and it has 3 different types of icons: line, bold, and broken. So you go to this package website, and then of course read the README to know how you use it, and then go to installing tab, and then you need to copy this and come back to your pubspec.yaml file. Here, this one, pubspec.yaml file, and then you need to paste it here and then save your file, cut the process, and run your application again. Anyways, for me, I already added, as you can see, and in most of the cases, you will find that I already write the code, and I will explain it in details for you. And this way of explanation will be done only for the UI part. So later on, for the state management or for the REST API, I will type the code with you and explain each line in details, so don't worry. This course already requires knowledge in Flutter, and if you already experienced with Flutter, you will not face any issue to follow along with me. And I asked my students already, and they told me that they prefer this way, so this is why I will use it from now on. Okay, so now let's go to the home screen, and as I said, I already write the code for it, and of course I will explain it for you now. So for the appBar, here it is, and it will look something like this. Now for these buttons I created a new file, but first I created a new folder, and inside of this folder, which is called widget, I added this appbar_icons.dart file, and this one is actually a container, but the user can press on it. Okay, so what I'm doing here actually is that I'm passing a function of type function, of course, and then I'm passing icon data to pass in the icon that I want. So I want to make my code shorter as much as it's possible. So this is why I generated this widget and make it dynamic based on these 2 attributes or parameters. Okay, so in here we have this container, and I gave it a shape circle, and then I gave it the color of the card color, which is coming from here because I already told you that we set our theme. So this light card color is coming from here, as I said, and now as a child for this container we have this icon, and to give it this cool space, I gave it this padding. Of course, you can play around with this padding, and if you don't like this color, you can choose any other color. So if I choose color.red, it will be red here, as you can see. So I'll just keep it like this for now. And now I will come back to the home screen, and then I have the appBar initialized in here. And to add the icon here to the left, we need to use something called leading, and to add any icon or any widget to the right, you need to add the actions. So now if I copy this and paste it once more and save it, I will have 2 different icons here. Okay, but for the leading, it's a simple widget. You can wrap it by a row in order to add multiple widgets to the right. Okay, so now I wrap it by row, and if I paste it like this and save it, it will appear like this. And as you can see, we have some overflow error. Of course, we can wrap it by flexible widget, but you don't have to do this, since usually most of the modern application will only have one button to this side. Okay, now if I save it, as you can see, the overflow error disappeared, but as I said, it's not recommended. Anyway, you can play around with the row, and I suppose that you know this, or you can add some spacing here, for example, a sized box, and give it width of 10. And now if you save it, there will be some spacing between them in here. Okay, so I will revert the changes now, so I'll keep it like this. And now, if you may notice, we don't have any elevation for it. So if I add elevation here and put it to 0, nothing changed, but by default I think it is 4. So if I put it 4, it will look something like this. And before, in the last section, or in the last lecture, I told you that we set up already our appBar theme. So in here, we already set up the elevation. So now if I come back, I commented now the elevation, and if I come back to the home screen and comment this one and restart the application, I will have some elevation, of course, here. Okay, and I'm getting error here because we need to remove this flexible. We cannot use it without the row. Okay, so save it again, and here it is. It's working fine now. Okay, so as I said, now we have this elevation, and to make it clearer for you, I will go to the main dot again, and then I will change the center title to false. And if I save it, as you can see, we have the title now to the left. And if you want to change the background color, you can change it from here. So you can say colors.red, and now the color in here will be red. Okay, so I will revert the changes and keep it like this and add the elevation again, and that's it. So I will go back again to the home screen, and in here, as I said, I use the appBar icons, and of course this widget takes into consideration two different parameters, which are the function and the icon. Because of the null safety, we cannot pass a null in here. We need to pass in an empty function. So if I try to pass in null, I will get an error. We need to pass in an empty function, and later on we will implement it together. Okay, and as an icon, I'm passing in the icon bold.user3. So this iconly bold is coming from the package that we just installed in the beginning of this tutorial. You can use iconly light and iconly broken. As I showed you, there's 3 different types, and as you can see, it is changed here. Okay, so I'll show it to you here also. So in here, I can say light, save it, and the light icons will be like this. It's like outline, and there's the broken one, and it will look something like this. Okay, but for me, in this case, I prefer the bold, so I'll just keep it like this. So I hope that everything is clear for you now. I'll see you in the next tutorial where we will start implementing this text field. So I'll see you there. Hi guys, in this tutorial, let's start implementing this text field. So let's go back to our application and start writing the code for it. So for that, instead of this center inside of the home screen, I will delete this widget, center widget with the text, and we need to initialize a column because we have multiple widgets standing above of each others. And in this tutorial, I will write the code with you from the beginning. So in here, simply we can initialize a text field. And now if I save it, here I have the text field. Now if I press here, as you can see, the keyboard is now hidden, and this is because I added this code in here. Okay, so now if I comment it and save the application, and now press here again, if I press anywhere on the screen, it will not work. So this is why I added this code. Now, of course, we need to add some decoration for it. The first thing I want to do is to wrap this column by padding, just like this. And then I will add a sized box to give it some margin from the top, and for the height I will give it value of 18, And now for this text field, we need to give it a controller. And for this controller, we need to initialize it somewhere in here inside of the state class. So let's say text editing controller, and let's say that we can initialize it like this. And for now, we can put it directly equal to its type. So just like this to initialize it. Or the better way is to initialize it inside of the init state. So we can say in here init state, and then in here we can put it equal to this value like this and add a semicolon in here. And now we can make this nullable, or we can add late keyword here, and now it doesn't have to be nullable anymore because we already initialize it in the init state. And if you don't know the difference between late and make the variable nullable and so on, I have a tutorial on my YouTube channel about this, and I will leave the link with you in the description. Now let's continue. And about the text controller or Fox nodes, for example, we need to dispose it, because once you navigate to another screen, this data will remain in the cached memory and it might stuck in your phone and make the application slower. So to make sure that it's being removed correctly, we need to add it in the dispose method. So in here, we just need to call the name and call the dispose method to it, like this. Okay, and now in here, down below, we can add the text controller. Now, if I save it, I have an error because we already was inside of the screen, and this is a late variable, and it's being initialized in the init state. And now, since we are already in this screen, this init state will not be called again. So I got this error. Now, if I restart it, of course, I will not get any error. Here it is, and now I have some padding. Of course, we need to do some decoration for it. So in here we can add decoration, but first I will add the keyboard type. And for the keyboard type, we can say text input type dot text, like this. And now for the decoration, we can say input decoration, and then we need to give it, for example, the hint text. I will use search. We can do the hint style, for example. For now, I will use the field also. I will put it to true to give it this field color. As you can see in here, as you can see, the background is different than the scaffold background. So I will give it to it. So in here, I set field. If I save it, now as you can see, we have the different background. And what I'm gonna do is that we can give the field color, and for me I will use the card color. So you can say in card color like this, save it, and now it is white. And one more thing left is that, as you can see in here, we don't have these borders, but when I focus in it, I have these borders will appear like this. So this can be done easily by adding the enabled border and the focused border. The enabled border is actually when the user is not focused inside of the text field, while the focused border is when he focuses inside of the text field. So in this situation, when you see the keyboard. So for that, I will add a code inside of the decoration. So in here, like this. So I added the code for the enabled border and another code for the focused border. And now if I save it, here it is. It looks very similar. Okay, of course, for the enabled border would be this state, while when I focus, this focused border will be applied. Okay, and if I change the color, for example, let's say background color, save it, and now as you can see, it is different, this border, because in here I'm giving it the border color. Okay, I'll just keep it like this. And of course, for the border radius, I give it value of 10. And then since we have borders all around, it's called outline input border. Okay, you have some different types about the borders. You can check it if you want, but for me, I will just keep it like this. Now, one more thing left is that we have the search icon over here. So we also need to add it, and in order to add it, it's very easy. we just need to add something else inside of the input decoration, which is the suffix icon. So in my case, I will add an icon in here, and we can say iconly light or bold dot search. Now save it, and I have it in here. So for the color, let's say color, and I will give it the light icon color. Okay, so now it totally appear just the same as this one. Okay, so this was for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we will implement the design of this carousel, and after that, we will implement the carousel itself. So I'll see you there. Hello guys, and welcome again. Now, in this tutorial, we will implement this carousel widget. Anyways, we will just implement the UI now, and in the next lecture, we will implement the carousel widget. Okay, so for that, I already write the code for this design, and I will explain to you how can you make such design. Anyways, you might find it a little bit different. It's because of the size. So in here, I'm using a different size, and in the next lecture, when we use the carousel, I will fix it. So don't worry about it. Now for this widget, I initialized or create a new folder called sale widget, and I changed the name of this folder to widgets instead of widget. And then in the home screen below of the text field, I initialized this sale widget in here. Okay, so now let's go back to the sale widget and let me walk you through it. So the first thing I want you to know or realize that you can access the screen width and height by calling the media query, and then you call of context, and then you can access the size. The size is of type size. So when you call the size, you can access the height, and then you can access the width also. Okay, and you can access something else, but we are only interested in the height and width for now. And then if you multiply it by 0.2, it means that you want 20% of the screen height to appear. So what I'm doing basically in here is that I'm giving this one, all of it, this height of this whole container, I'm giving value of the 20% of the height of this screen. Okay, so now we need to give it the linear gradient. So for that, we can access the gradient for the container. So for that, we need to initialize the decoration, and then there's something called the gradient, and this is take something called also linear gradient, and there's something else, but in our case, we need to use the linear gradient, and then you need to pass in the color to it as a list. Then you can play around with the begin and end in order to change the beginning and ending of the gradient. Okay, so you can play with the begin and end and with all of these in order to change the starting and ending point of the gradient. Okay, of course you can change these colors. So if I change it to red, for example, and now save it, it will become red, as you can see. Okay, and if you put this to 1, for example, some difference will be applied, as you can see. Okay, so play around with it to understand how does it really work. So that's it for the gradient. Now for this border, it's easy. We just need to add the border radius, and I set it to 18. Now we need to add these two widgets inside of this container, and these two widgets standing beside of each other. So this is why I initialize this row. And in order to avoid any overflow errors and in order to give it the width, I used the flexible widget, and I used the flex equal to 2 for the first widget, and I used flex equal to 3 for the second widget. Okay, so if I change it to 1, now as you can see, we have the first widget way more bigger than the second one, and I don't find it good, to be honest, so I'll just keep it like this. Now, let me walk you through it. So we have this container. Of course, I gave it a color of this color. I gave it radius of 18. And then we have the column inside of it. So I initialized in here this column. Then I wrap it by some padding in order to add some padding for this text. And I use the main axis size and put it to maximum. If I remove it and save it, nothing will happen, but in some cases it will make some difference. So this is why I kept it. And then for this main axis alignment, also if I remove it and save it, nothing will change because I'm using now the flexible widget in order to give the whole space, I mean the whole left space for this text. So basically inside of this column, we have two different children. The first one is the text, and I give it a color of white. And then we have some margin between both of them. This is why I added the sized box. And then we have this text. And in order to avoid any overflow errors, I use this flexible, and then I use the fitted box. So if I remove one of them, we might get an overflow error. So if I remove it and save it, as you can see now, the size is very small. And now if I put the font size and save it, I didn't get any overflow error. But if, for example, change it to 300, it didn't even appear. So this is not good. So this is why it's better if I keep the fitted box, and even if I change the font size, it will work, as you can see. Okay, but it's better to remove it and keep it like this because it is useless. And of course, if I remove the flexible, we might also get other errors. So if I remove it now and save it, as you can see, now we have an overflow error. So better keep it to avoid any overflow error. Now the last widget inside of the row. So the column is done over here. The column was for the text here and for this sale text here. And then this flexible stands for the first child inside of the row, which is this container. So if we check it here, as you remember, I told you we have flex of 2. Then down below, we have a simple child standing for this image network. So I'm just giving the width to it so we can remove it and try it. So when I removed it, it appeared like this. It's not a big deal, so I'll keep it. And then you can add something called fit. And for this fit, you can use the one that you want. For me, I will use, for example, fill and save it. And it will appear like this. But I don't prefer it. It appears something like, it appears very stretched. So I would like to just keep it how it is, or we can use contain and save it, and it will look better like this. Okay, so this was for this tutorial, and the next tutorial we will implement the carousel together, and I will write the code with you from the beginning. So I'll see you there. In this tutorial, we will start implementing this carousel widget. So in order to do this, we need a new package. So for that, we go to the pubspec.html file, and you need to search for card swiper. Then, if you go to the README, you will have a lot of examples. So I recommend you to check it, and you will have the codes. And then you go to the installing tab, and then you copy this and go back to the pubspec.html file, and you need to paste it here. And for me, I already installed it. After adding this, we need to go to the home screen. So in here, and instead of the sale widget, we need to initialize our widget. So in our case, we need to initialize a swiper, and then we need to give it the item count. In our case, I will give it 3. It takes an item builder. So as usual, we need to pass in the context and the index. So an int and a build context. You don't have to specify the type. We can directly type it like this. And then we need to return this sale widget. And of course, don't forget to add the return in here, like this. Now I will start the application, and let's see what will happen. So here it is, and now I got an error. We need to wrap this swiper by a defined height because it will make an overflow error. So for that, let's wrap it by a sized box, and then let's say height, and I will give it size.height, and we didn't define the height, the size, so let's define it in here. So let's say size, and we can. So in here I defined the size. We call the media query, then dot of context, and then we call the size. Then after that we can call the height or width, for example. Let's continue now. So we can use the size in here, and now I will call the height, and I will multiply it by 0.25 to take 20% of the height of the screen. Now if I save it, here it is, it's working. But as you can see, it's working, but we don't have these points in here, the indicators point. So we don't have them. So we need to add it, and we can add it easily. And this can be done by adding something called pagination. So let's say pagination in here, and it takes swiper pagination, so this one. And now I will save it. And now I have these bullets in here. It would be nice if we give it the alignment, for example, and if we give it a builders to be able to give it the color and so on. So for the alignment, I would say bottom center. So like this. And then for the builder, we need to give it something called dot swiper pagination builder. And now we can give it the color, and for the active color, I will give it red. It should be active color here. And then for the normal color, we can give it white. So let's say color and colors.white. And that's it. Now let's add the const keyword here and save it. And now I have this red dot here. One more thing I want to show it to you is that you can add something called control. And this control, I'll show it to you when we add it. So let's say control. And then you need to add something called swiper control. And anyways, all of these you can find it in the README. So now if I save this, I have these controls here, so the user can press on it. But of course, we don't want it. It looks annoying, so I'll just remove it. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. As I said, I strongly recommend you to pass through the README because you have a lot of examples you can use it. Okay, so in here they use the pagination, control, and so on. You can do the same. So this was for this tutorial, and in the next tutorial we will start implementing the code for this widget. I will write the code for it and then explain to you, then we will implement the GridView together. I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, in this tutorial we will implement the products design. So what you are seeing now on the screen, but for now we will implement it just the design, and in the next tutorial we will implement the GridView together. So in the last tutorial, I told you that I will write the code, then explain it to you in details. So this is what I did. I added the code for it now, and it's looking something like this, but later on it will look just the same as this. And in here I have this error loading image is coming from the API. And this image it cannot be fetched, and later on in this tutorial I will show you how can we handle this. Okay, so now let's go back to our application. So what I did basically is that I added a new file inside of the widgets folder. It's called feeds_widget, and it is a stateless widget, and the name of the class is feeds_widget. So basically it is constituted of a column, and to be able to press on it and show this splash color, I wrap it by an equal, and I gave it the card background color in order to look something like this. And if you change this to a container and you give it the color, the splash color might not appear. So let's try it now, save it. And now if I press on it, nothing is happening and we don't have the splash color. So make sure to use the material if you want to show the splash color. And what I did also is that I matched this border radius because I want when the user press on it to match the radius also. So if I say, for example, 38 and save it now, and now if I press on it, as you can see, it is different. So I want the borders to be the same. Now I added this column, and inside of this column, so we have in here a text, then we have an icon, and for the text we have this $sign colored by blue, then the text is black. And of course you can use a row in order to make this, but Flutter gives us a really cool widget, which is the rich text, where you will be able to use it for the text if you wanna change the color or play with the size without using a row. So basically this rich text, you need to give it a text, and the first text will be a text span, and this text span you can give it a children, and you can give it as many as you want as text spans. So you can give it the style as what you want, and it will be placed next to each other. Of course, I wrapped it by flexible widget to avoid any overflow errors. And then I added this icon in here. Now down below, of course, we need to add this image in here that's coming from the URL, and I use something called fancy shimmer image, and it might be new to you, so you need to go to the pubspec.yaml file and you need to search for the fancy shimmer image. Then you go to this one and you should check the readme, and I installed this package already. So for the readme, here's an example on how it looks. So we have this shimmer effect before that the images are being loaded. So you can play along with the background color of the shimmer image, as you can see, so check it out. And here's an example about it. So let's go back to our code, and in here I define the height for it, and then I define the width, and I use the box fit, and I put it to fill, and I gave it the image URL. Now, if you want to handle this error, if you don't have any image, so there is a widget called error widget, and then you can say image or something like this. Actually is to use the icon, and I will use iconly bold.danger, then I will say color and give it colors.red, and then I will say also let's give it size of, let's say 28. Okay, so now save it, and now if this image is not being fetched, we will have this error widget, which is cool. Now let's add the const keyword here, and down below we have this title widget, and for that I added some margin, then I added this text and do some styling for it. So for the overflow I said ellipses, and I gave it maximum lines of 2, so I will say times 100. And in here let's remove this const, save it, and now as you can see we have these 3 dots in here, and in maximum we have 2 different lines. Let's remove now the times 100, and I did some styling to it just to give it the font weight and so on. And down below I added this sized box in order to give it some margin at the bottom. I hope that it's clear for you. In the next tutorial we will implement the GridView for it, and I will write the code from the beginning with you. I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, in this tutorial let's implement the GridView. So let's go back to our application and let's go to the home screen. And now instead of this, we can write the code for our GridView. For me, I prefer to use the GridView.builder because it is the best for the performance. So let's say GridView.builder. We need to give it the grid delegate, and we need to give it the item builder. For now, I will go and finish the item builder. So we need to give it the context, then the index, and then we need to return our widget. Of course, we can now remove this sized box like this and remove the child. And now that's it. Of course, we need to give it the item count. So let's give it the item count here, and I will put it and the main screen I will put it 3. And then we need now to work with the grid delegate. So for that, we need to define something called sliver grid delegate, and you have these 2. For me, in this case, I will use the count, and now you need to specify the cross-axis count, and I will use 2. For the cross-axis spacing, I will use 0. For the main axis spacing, I will use also 0. And for the child aspect ratio, I will use 0.6. Okay. So keep in mind that this is not fully responsive. So in my case, I'm working on this emulator. So please make sure to use the same emulator as me. And I will not implement it for the landscape mode. It will be available only in the portrait mode. And I already mentioned this in the description. So now let's continue and add this const. And let's add this const keyword also here. And now let's restart the application and let's see how it looks. Okay, so I got an error. So the best way in order to fix this, we can wrap it by an expanded widget and save it. And here it is. It looks like this, but it's very, very annoying to be like this. So we can just move this. I want all of this widget to be moving. So let's remove this expanded widget. And then what I'm gonna do is to add the shrink wrap, put it to true, and then physics, choose never scroll physics, and now save it. And now I cannot scroll it anymore. Perfect. So what I want exactly is that I want to move these widgets to be scrollable, I mean. So we can wrap this column by a single child scroll view, and then all of it will be moving, or you can wrap the widgets down below by a column, and then wrap it by a single child scroll view. Okay, so let's implement it, and now below of this text field, so here I will cut all of the other widgets, so it should be until here, and then we can now define a single child scroll view, and then as a child we can give it a column, and then children, and now paste our code, and now save it, or restart the application, and let's see what will happen. So I'm still having an error. Let's wrap the single child scroll view by an expanded widget, and now save it, and now it is working. Now restart the application, make sure that it's working, and here it is. It's working correctly. Okay, and it looks the same as this one. Okay, so this was for this tutorial. See you in the next one. Hi guys, in this tutorial I want to show all the products in this screen. And in order to do this, it's easy, but I want you to notice something is that the transition has some fading. So in order to do this, we need to use a new package which allows us to do this animation, which is called page transition. So you search for the pub.dev for the page transition, then you go to this one and read the README, of course. Then you have a lot of examples in here, and in my case I will use the fade transition. So let's go back to our code, and then we can go to the home screen, and for this function we can give it this line of code, and we don't have this detailed screen. Of course we will use the feed the screen. So in my case I add it here, so I need to save the file to be installed, and let's create a new file. Let's name it feed_screen.dart, and now in here let's initialize the status widget. I will name it feeds screen like this, and then let's return in here scaffold, and for this scaffold we need to give it the body, and as a body we can use the same code as this one. Of course we can save this GridView and a separated widget, and we can use it. Okay, I'll just paste it here now, and now we can import this, and let's go to the home screen, and for the page transition let's import it, and let's use in here feeds screen, and now let's restart the application, and let's see if it is working. Okay, press here, and here it is. It's working correctly. Now one more thing is to add the app bar, so I can just copy it from here. We will actually use a few things, so I'll just copy it and paste it in the feeds screen. So let's compare it. Okay, it looks like this. So let's paste our code here. We don't have to use this leading, we don't have to use this action, and it will be just like this. Now save it. Let's go back to our code, and here it is. And now in here let's say all product. That's it. Okay, if I press here it will go back, and now you can notice this fade animation. That's it for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. Hey guys, in this tutorial we will implement the product detail screen. So basically this screen, and all of these widgets, you saw it before. So the fancy shimmer image, the swiper, and the other text, and this rich text. Now if I go back to go to another product, of course we will show this product. Anyways, for now we are just implementing the design. So for that I already write the code for it, and I will explain to you what I did. So I created a new file inside of the screens called product_details. So let's go here, and it looks something like this. So basically, of course, we will have a column, and the first child is the back buttons that you can see it here. And then we have this category text, which you can see it in here. Then I added some margin between this text and the title and the price. So for that, I added the size box. Then I added this row to handle the title and to handle the rich text. So for the rich text, you saw it already before, and I wrap it by flexible widget. Same for this one. I used flex equal to 3 for the title to appear or to give it space more than the price. Moving forward, I initialized the sized box for the swiper, and we already did it before. And I'm returning inside of this swiper this fancy shimmer image, which I also explained it before. So this is basically the same code that we used at the home screen for the swiper. Okay, here it is. Now let's go to the product detail. And finally, we have the description. So in here, I initialize this column also again, and I wrapped it by padding. And I did this way. Actually, I initialized multiple columns because I don't want a padding for this image. So if you notice this swiper, I didn't wrap it by padding. So this is why the first column will end here, which I wrap it by padding. This one doesn't have any padding. Then for this one, I added this padding and I did this column in here. Okay, this is actually very easy. Just try to play around with the code so you understand everything better. Okay, so here's the text for the description, and here's the title for the description. Okay, now save it, and it looks like this. And for the text, I added this title style here because I used it in multiple places, so we can basically do it like this. Now the final thing is that I added the code and the feeds widget and the equal in here to allow us to navigate to this screen, which we implement the same when we are seeing all of the products. So I use this function, and in here I use the products detail. Simple as that. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we will implement the category screen. I'll see you there. Hi guys, in this tutorial, let's implement the categories screen. As you can see, the design is very easy, so please stop this video here and try to implement it by your own. I hope that you did it, so now let's proceed. And in order to implement this, I will create a new file inside of the widgets, and I will name it category_widget.dart, and then it's gonna be a stateless widget. I will name it category widget like this, and let's fix this. Okay, and now let's return, and the widget that we need to use is a new widget, which is the stack widget, because we have two different widgets above of each other. As you can see, we have this text standing above those of this image. So let's say in here stack children, and as you can see, the stack takes children just like the row and the column. And if you want to know more about the stack, I used it a lot in my other courses on Udemy, so check it out. Now let's continue. And the first child gonna be is the fancy shimmer image, so we can copy it from here, from the feeds widget. So let's go back and paste it here. Of course, we need to import the packages. We need to define the size. So let's go back here, copy it from here, and come back and paste the size here. We need to import the iconly package, the material package, and then we need to remove this. Anyways, you can use a command in order to remove or fix your problems, and I will make a separated tutorial about it later on. So we can now test what we wrote in here. So for that, we can create a new file in the screens, and let's name it categories_screen. dot dart. And first I will change this one to the width times 45, and I will do the same for the width. Okay, now in the categories screen, we can use the same code from the feeds screen. So I'll copy this, go to the categories screen, and I will initialize a status widget. I will name it categories screen, like this. And now we can return our widget, but of course we need a scaffold since it is a screen. So now let's say in here body and paste our code. And instead of this feeds widget, we need to use the category widget. And now I will change this child aspect ratio to 1.2. And for the other parameters, I will just keep it like this. Alright, so now this category screen, it can be used to navigate to it. So in the home screen, we can use this function to navigate to the category screen. So let's search in here to category. For this icon, which is in the appBar, so for this one here, so we can now use this code, and instead of the feeds screen, we can navigate to the category widget. We should navigate to the category screen. So this one. Now let's start the application and let's see how well it looks. Let's go back to our application and now press here. Okay, we can navigate and it looks something like this. Okay, so let's go now to the categories widget. And what I'm gonna do for this moment is to wrap this stack by a container. And let's say colors.blue, save it, and it looks like this. Okay, now let's wrap this stack by padding. Now save it, and it looks like this. What I'm gonna do to show it clearly for you, I will put this container here and save it, and now it looks like this. Okay, so it would be nice if we add the appBar. So let's say appBar, and let's give it the title, and let's say text, categories, like this. Let's add the const keyword, and that's it. Now it looks like this. Now we need to add the text. So in order to do this, let's go to the category screen, and below of this clip rect, so below of this image, we need to write the code of the text. So let's say in here text, and for now let's say cat name, like this, and then we need to do some styling to it. I will save it first, and it appeared in here. We will fix the position later on. For now, let's say text align and put it to the center. Save it. And what else we can do is to add some styling to it. So let's say text style. And now we need to specify the background color, like this. And now you can use the card color. So let's say near light, card color, and call opacity of 0.5, like this. Now save it, and now it looks something like this. I will change the font size to 24, and I will choose the font weight and put it to bold. Save it, and now here it is. I want this text now to be in the center, and this can be done easily by wrapping this text by the positioned widget, and I will use .fill. Now save it. It worked, but it moved the text to the center, horizontally to the center. I want it also vertically to the center, and this can be done by wrapping this text also by the align widget, like this, and say in here alignment, and use the center like this. Save it, and now here it is in the center. If I remove this widget and try it again, it's gonna work also, but I used it just to show you that you can use also the positioned.fill, but you can directly use the align widget also. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is to remove this container because we don't need it, and later on these images will be coming from the API. Okay, and uh, I'll just keep it for this moment so it appears something like this to you, so it's clearer, and later on we can get rid of it because we will not use it. Okay, so this was for this tutorial. In the next tutorial we will implement the user's screen, so which is this screen, and with that our UI will be done. So that's it for this tutorial. See you in the next one. Hi guys, so now our application looks like this, which is just the same as the main application, and we implemented in the last tutorial this categories screen. And now what left only is that to implement the user's screen. So in this tutorial we will finalize our application design, so we need to implement this screen. So I will write the code with you from the beginning. For that, let's create a new file inside of the widgets. And let's name it users widget.dart. And then now we can say or define a stateless widget, and let's say users widget like this, and now return. And as you can see, we can use a row, but simply we can use a button widget and Flutter, which is named list tile. And I really like this widget because it makes our work way more easier. We can define directly the leading, which will be in our case the fancy shimmer image, so we can get it from the feeds from here. So we can search for the fancy shimmer image and we can copy this directly. So we can paste it here now. Of course, we can import this image and import this image also. And for the size, we need to define it also. So I'll just copy it and paste it here. And for the height and width, we need to fix it. So I will use width times 0.15. And I will use the same for the width. Okay. Now this is for this leading. We need for the title also, we can say in here directly title, and now we can give it the text. And for the text, it will be the user name, like this. And then we can access the subtitles, and of course we can define again something, and let's say in here email@email.com. And then final thing is that to define the trailing, and the trailing is gonna be also a text. So let's say text, and let's say user role. And now we can define the style. So for the style, let's say text style, and we can access now the color to change it. So for the color, I will use actually the light icon colors, like this. And for the font weight, I will use it, I'll put it to bold. Okay, so let's say bold, and that's it. Okay, so the code will look something like this. So this is the design for it. Now we can use this widget inside of the screen. So for that, let's initialize a new screen, which will be named users_screen.dart, like this, and it's gonna be a stateless widget. So let's say users screen, and now we need to return a scaffold, and let's say body, paste our code here, like this. And now we can navigate to this screen. So for that, let's go to the home screen. Let's copy this function. Let's paste it here. And now let's call in here the users screen. Now let's restart the application and let's see what will happen. Okay, so now if I press here, I should navigate. And yeah, here it is. But of course, we need to fix it. So we need to add the appBar. So I can copy this and then come back to the user's screen. and paste it here like this. Okay, so it looks like this. Now one more thing is that let's define a list of this list style. So I'll use also the list view tool builder because it's the best for the performance. And in here we need to give it the context as usual and the index. And then we need to return our widget just like this. And of course it would be better if we give it the item count. I will use 10. Save it, and here it is. Now one more thing before that I end this tutorial, I will change this image to this image so it looks like this, and then I will change the categories also. So I'll change this image to be like this, and now we can remove the container. So this container is now useless. Now save it, and it looks like this. Okay, let's go back, and our application now it looks like this. We have the product detail, and for the product detail also I'll show you if I use the other image. So instead of using this one, I'll use this one, save it, and here it is. Now it looks like this. So this is why previously I told you I didn't use any margin to this image, so it takes all of the space. Okay, and if we use it in the feeds screen, so feeds widget, let's change it from here and save it, and now it looks something like this, which is really cool. Now one more thing before that I end this tutorial is that we can go to the home screen, search for the grid view, and you can play around with this child aspect ratio to make it dynamic, but for me I'll just keep it like this, and now save it. I changed it to 0.7, and now it looks kinda better for this device, and I'll do the same for this one. So and the feeds screen, change it to 7, and that's it. Okay, so this was for this tutorial, and with this tutorial we implemented everything as the UI for our widget. And yeah, as you can see, we don't have spacing here. So let's search for the text field, and I'll copy the sized box and I'll paste it here, and let's save it now. And now we have this spacing here. Yeah, now it looks way more better. And as you can see, if I focus here, press here, the focus will be disappeared. Perfect, so this was for this tutorial. See you in the next tutorial where we will start with the REST API. Hi everyone, and welcome to this section. In this section, we will start working with the REST API. So before that we get started, I want you to know exactly what REST API is. So for that, if you type in Google REST API and go to the images, you will find a lot of diagrams. Let's take this one for example for now. I'll open this image in new tab, and here it is. So for this diagram, in here we have the client. The client in our case will be using our mobile application. And in here we have this REST API, which is found between the client and then between the database. So from this diagram, you can understand that REST API is like a connection between the application and the database. The user will make some requests, and these requests will be of 4 different types. And then the REST API will ask the database to do these tasks, and then it will give us a response by JSON, for example, or XML. Let's take another diagram, for example. Let's take this one. And for this one, it's almost the same as the previous one. But in here we have this server, and this server is basically a database. You can take Google, for example, where you search for something and then you get the results. It's same. So in here we have these 4 different actions that it's actually related to the REST API, and then we send the HTTP request to the server or the database. Then the server will give us back an HTTP response. It will give it to the REST API, and the REST API will give us the results as a type of a JSON or XML or HTML. And then our work is to convert this data and show it clearly to the user. So before that I end this tutorial, I want you to download a program which is called Postman. So search for Postman and go to this website, and you will be able to install it. It's a very small program, so just install it, and it's very easy to be used. Hi guys, and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial I will walk you through the API that we will be using in our course. So if you go to Google and then search for Platzi Fake Store API, you will get these results. So we are going to use this API, which is called Platzi Fake Store API. And of course, I will provide you with the link of this website. And then I opened it, then press on the View Docs in order to be able to understand the documentation and what this API provides us. So here the introduction, and then we can access the products, categories, users, authentication, and files. In our case, we will use the products, categories, and users. If you go to products, in here you have the overview about what you have inside of this API. So you can get all products. The REST API method will be get, and here's the URL that we will be using to get all the products. For example, if you want to get only a single product, and this will be very helpful in order to show the correct product inside of the details screen. So here, so we're gonna use later on this URL. What else we have also? We can create product, update product, delete product, and the most important thing is that the pagination. So the pagination, you have something called offset and you have something called limit. And as I told you previously, if we go to the all products tab and then scroll down, when I arrive until the end, it will fetch more the items. So I'm fetching 10 items each time, and you can change this number. So we are going to use this link later on also. Now let's check the categories. So here also we can get all the categories, same as the products. Then you can get a single category by the ID, create a category, update a category, and so on. Okay, same for the users. We have the same methods. Okay, so check it out, and later on when we are using it inside of our application, it will become clear how can you access it and how can we integrate it in our Flutter application. For the next tutorial, I want you to install the Postman program. So you just need to type Postman, and you need to go to this website, then download this program. This program is very easy, and it will be very helpful to test the REST API before that we integrate it in our application. Okay, so I'll show it to you in the next tutorial. So I'll see you there. Hi guys, in this tutorial, we are going to use the Postman in order to test the API. So I hope that you installed the Postman on your machine. And when you open it, it will look something like this. So you can press on the new, and then you press on the HTTP request. And then in here and the tabs, you can add and remove or save the files. Okay, so in here you can paste the URL, and then in here you can choose the method that you need. So let's test the API now. So first of all, let's get all the products. So I will copy this and then come back to the Postman and paste it here, and the method should be get. So now send it. And now I got the results. Okay. So here are the results, and these results will be useful in order to show the products in our application. Anyways, this API is very basic, and we don't have an API key, and we don't have to send any other data, and this is make the API very simple. So this is why I already made another tutorial or another course on Udemy, which is the Flutter REST API course, where I build a news application. So if you want to be an expert with APIs, you should take this course also. Okay, but for now, the course that I'm working on, the store course is really helpful as a start with the REST API. Okay, so now let's continue, and I got the data, and if I use, for example, post and try to send it, I will get an error. So we will also use the errors handling. So later on, we can check the status code, we can get the message in order to show the user a friendly message, for example. Now let's go back to our documentation, and then, for example, if I want to get a single product, so I can copy this without the ID for now. Let's go and press on the plus here and paste it. And now let's go back to the previous method, change it and put it to get, send. And now you have the IDs in here. For example, I want to get this ID. So let's go here. The 3 will stand at the end, and now send. Now, as you can see, you will have this response. So we have the ID, title, price, description, the category, and the images. And the images, as you can see, we have now 3 different images. Okay, now let's see for the categories, for example, and here, if I use this URL, I will get all the categories. So I'll try it now. Here it is. We have the ID, name, and image. Anyways, for the response, you can choose the format that you need. If you want XML, HTML, or JSON, for me, I prefer JSON. And in the next tutorial, I will show you a method in order to transform the JSON to a Dart file. So we will create a Dart model using this JSON data. See you in the next one. Hi guys, so in the last tutorial we got these results, these JSONs. So now we need to use it in order to convert it to a Dart model. So what I'm gonna do is now to get the products. So the URL will be like this. So press send. And now we have this sample response. We have an ID, title, price, description, and category. For the category, it is a map, and also we can get it from the API. So we can also convert this category to a Dart model. And since we have it already by this response, if I convert it now to a Dart model, we will have also a separated class related to the category. It will become clearer now when I convert it. So press Ctrl A, Ctrl C, copy it, then go to the browser and search for JSON to Dart. And go to this link, and then press paste your data here, and type the name of your class. In my case, I will name it products model. So let's say products model, like this, and now generate Dart. Like this, and as you can see, it is available with the null safety. Now I will copy all of these, and then I will go back to our codes, and then I will create a new folder and I will name it models, and then I will create a new file and I will name it products underscore model.dart, like this. Now paste our data, and I didn't get any error. We can get rid of these new keywords, and this map we can get rid of it. We don't have to define it this way. We can just type in like this, and we don't need this in here. We can just type it like this. And actually this to JSON constructor, we don't need it. I will not cover it in this course, but I already covered it in the news course that I talked about. So if you want to know about it, you can check this course out. Anyways, let's go back to our code, and now I will remove this since we don't need it. And anyways, this is what I was talking about. It generated also a category class. And this category class is coming from this category, okay? Because we have ID, name, and an image. And this is basically what happened, okay? Now, before that, I continue editing in this file. I will cut these lines of code and then create a new file, and I will name it categories model.dart and paste our code here. And I prefer to change the name like this to make it clear, to avoid any confusion. So now paste it, and that's it. Now this model, it needs to be used also in here. Okay, and we need to import it, of course, like this. And now also this to JSON, we don't need it, so I will just remove it. And now this category will be of type categories model. Now I don't have any error, but I need to explain to you what basically happens in this file. Okay, so in here I have a sample response of the product. So we have an ID. This is why we added this ID in here. It is an int. Then we have the title. We have it here, price, description, and the category, which is the categories model here. And then we have a list of images. So all of these variables, we initialize it also in here. And then we created the constructor, and it is a named constructor, which is I prefer it to avoid any confusion. Now in here we have this factory constructor from JSON in order to convert this JSON data to a model, to a product model. So this product's model, of course, it takes ID, title, and so on. So we need to access this JSON in order to assign it to the product's model. So for the ID, we need to access this ID. So later on, when we fetch our data from the API, we will have it in this form, which is a JSON. It's like a map. So we have keys and value pairs. So the key and for the ID, for example, is an ID, this one, and the value will be 4. And if I want to access the title, we need to access the JSON title, and it will give me this title, for example, for this case. For the category, it will be the same. So we need to access the JSON, and we need to access the category. And these keys must match the names in here. Okay, so this name, description, price, title, and so on must be the same. Okay, to make it more clear for you, I will show you also the categories model. So let's go to the categories class, or in here inside of the REST API. So in our case, this is simpler. So we have the ID, name, and images. So in order to access the ID, for example, we need to access the JSON ID. And this is what has been done in here. To access the name, we need to access the JSON name in order to create the categories model. Later on, also, when we start getting the data in our application and we start using these classes, it will become easier for you. Okay, so I think I will end this tutorial here. I'll see you in the next one. Hello, in this tutorial, we will start fetching the data in our application. So we will integrate Flutter now with the REST API that we have. So for that, we need, for example, this URL in order to get the product. So I will just copy it, and then I will go back to our application and then create a new folder, and I will name it services. And then I will create a new file and I will name it API handler.dart. And now let's create a class and I will name it API handler, like this. And the first thing we need to do is to import the HTTP package. So in order to import it, we can import it like this directly. And anyways, previously you had to install it from the pub.dev, but for now you don't have to do it anymore. So now we need to initialize a method in order to get our product. And of course, it's going to be a future. So let's say future. And for now, I will keep it of type void. And the name, you can name it get all products, like this. And we need to add the async keyword. And now we can use the HTTP package in order to get the result from this URL. Okay, so in here we can say HTTP and you call, if you press dot, you will have a lot of suggestions. And in our case, as you can see, we have the get, you have the post method, delete, all the method related to the REST APIs. In our case, we need to get the data from this URL. So I will copy it and paste it here. And now I have an error. If you hover here, it takes a URI. So we need to convert this URL to a URI. So let's say URI.parse, and we need to paste it here like this, just like this. And now it would be nice if we save this in a response. So like this, and we need to await it because this get method is a future. So we need to await it. And then we can, for example, print the response. And in here we call JSON the code, and I will pass in the response like this. And of course we need to access the response body. Now that's it. And this get all products, I will use it somewhere in order to print the response and see what we have. So I will go to the home screen, and the best place in order to do this is the did it change dependencies. So in here we can call the API handler, then we need to call our method. But now I don't have access to it, so let's go back and let's make this method static. So now I should have access to it, as you can see. That's it. Now if I restart the application or run it, okay, the application is being installed now. We should see something here. Yeah, here it is. Perfect. So in here we have this response because we are printing in here. So we have response, and then we have the data in here. So later on, we need to use these results in order to display it in our screen. What I'm gonna do now is to show you another approach in order to do this. So instead of using this uri.parse, we usually use a better approach by using the uri.https. And this way is actually better to organize your code and to understand what's going on. So what I'm gonna do is to initialize a var, and I will name it uri, and it will be equal to uri.https. And now you have the authority and an encoded path. In our case, the authority is this one, so I will cut it, and I will create a new class and the consts, and I will name it API underscore consts.dart. Then I will say base URL equal to this, and of course it will be a string. And let's define the type, so string like this, and it is as const, so we can do it like this. And now for the authority, as I said, we can use the base URL like this. And since we called the HTTPS, we don't have to use the HTTP in here, so we can get rid of it. Then we will have the unencoded path, which is this path. So we can paste it here like this. And if you have something else, just like I explained in the first tutorial of this section, you can pass in the other arguments for this URI, okay, such as the map, for example, the query parameters, if you have. And in here you have an example. The base URL is this one, then the unencoded path, then you have the query, which is the query parameters. It will look something like this. And I also covered all of these in the news course. So if you are interested, please check it out. And I strongly recommend you to buy it from the discount link that I give it to you in the description. Now, one more thing, we don't need this forward slash here. And now we can use this URI here. Now I will restart the application. Before we don't need also this, so let's remove it. And we can just use the URI directly, and now that's it, and I should get the same response. As you can see, we have now this response. Perfect. So in the next tutorial, we will start showing this data in our application. So I'll see you there. Hi guys, in this tutorial, we will display the products on the screen. So let's start doing this. In order to do that, let's go to the products model. And in here, we need to return a list of product model. So we need to save or read our data. So we need to read the JSON data and transform it to products model and create a list of products model in order to be able to show it inside of our application. I know it might be confusing for you, but while coding, it will become clearer. So follow along with me. What can we do exactly is to initialize in here a list, and it's going to be a static. So let's say static list, and as I said, it needs to be of type products model, and you can name it whatever you want. I will say products from snapshot or from JSON, whatever you want to name it, it needs to take a list or a JSON, depends on how you want to implement it, but I'll keep it simple to you. Let's say product snapshot or whatever you want to name this list. And in here, you need to loop over the product snapshot. So what I'm gonna do now is to leave this code like this, and then go to the API handler and implement our code in here to explain to you what I want to do. So in here, let's define something called data, and this data will contain our response body. And of course, we need to encode it. So let's copy this, paste it here, and that's it. Now, this data is iterable, so I can loop over it. So I can say, for example, value and data like this. And then I can do something here. Of course, we need to initialize this v. And what I'm gonna do is to print v, for example. So I'll say v in here, $v, then go to another line. Or let's add 2 different lines like this. And now I will comment this line for you, and I will comment this line to test the application. So restart the application now, then go here and let's see what will happen. Okay, and now it's being printed. So in here, I have v, I have the title, I have the price, and everything. If I go up a little bit, I have another v here, and so on. Okay, and I think we have around 200 products. Perfect. So what I'm gonna do is to append this v to a list. So we can initialize in here a list, and I will name it temp list, for example, and let's initialize it like this. And now to add to this list, you can simply, I'll just comment this line for now. You can simply add to it like this and pass in v, and that's it. Now this temp list, it can be used for our products model in here. Okay, so we can use now this products from snapshot and our API handler. So what I'm gonna do now is to change this type of return to be a list of products model like this. Now I got an error because we must return something here. So let's say in here, return, and then let's call the products model. And now you can call products from snapshot, and you need to give it the list. In our case, we need to give it this list. Okay, so this list will contain exactly what we printed in here. Okay, so each v. So I can also loop over it in order to access this data. And this is what we need to do in here. So basically in here, we say return, then you call your list, and then we can call map to loop over it. And this e, I will name it data. And in here, we also need to return something. So we can type it like this. And then we need to return product model dot from JSON, and then we pass in our data like this. And finally, we need to convert this to a list like this, and that's it. So let me explain to you what I did again. So in the API handler, we are calling this, and we are passing it our list that contain our values here that we printed in here. And then we are looping over this product snapshot. And in here you have this data, and this data basically it's each v of these. Okay, so each v now is the data in here. Okay, and as you can see, this v is of type is like JSON format, so you can access the values by its key, and this is why we are using this from JSON. So we are calling this from JSON, and we are giving it this data, which is basically a map, so we can access the data by its key. Okay, and to make it clear for you, what I'm gonna do now is to restart actually the application. I wanted to remove this line to not print anything. And now I don't have anything in my console. And what I'm gonna do is to, for example, print data in here. So let's say data and print it in here like this. And now restart the application. And now I will have all of the data in here. As you can see, we have it in here. What I'm gonna do also, I will cut this line and I will paste it here. And now I will access this product snapshot like this, and I will access the first index inside of it. So let's restart the application and let's see the response. I will have only one product. Here it is. It is the first product inside of our list. So I think now it is clear enough for you to understand it. So what I want to do next is to show the data on the screen. So I will remove this printing line, and then we can go to the home screen. And now in the did it change dependencies, so in here we will have a list of this type. So what I'm gonna do is to define this list, just a list like this, and I will initialize it in here like this, and let's say products list, and initially I will put it to equal to this. You can put it equal to nothing, but I'll just keep it like this. And now we can put this product list equal to this, and of course we need to await it. So for that, let's create a separated function and let's name it, for example, get data, and it will be of type void. So let's say get products like this, and let's add the async keyword, and now we paste our code, and in here we need to add the await keyword, and that's it. Now this method need to be called in here like this, and now this product list, it can be used for the grid view, so it can be used here in order to send the data to the fields widget. So what I'm gonna do for now is to pass in the image URL and the title. So let's say title. First, let's it will be a string. So let's say title and image URL like this, just to test it for now. And of course, we need to pass it now from here and remove this const. So let's say here image URL, we need to access our list and access the index, and then we need to access the image URL. Now I don't have this product list here, so I also have to pass it from here. So let's say final, and just we can get it from here. So let's search for product list, and I will copy it from here like this. And now here we can paste it, and it's gonna be a final, and we don't have to initialize it like this. We just need to add it now to the constructor. Okay, so here it should be final like this. We need to import this class, and we need to add the field parameter. And now we can use this product list here in order to access the image URL and in order to access the title. And now for the images, if you remember, it is a list of images of strings. So I will choose the first item of this list. So now let's use the title. So for the title, let's call the products list dot title like this, and let's call dot to string to it. Okay, so now we passed this data. Now we can use this feeds grid widget inside of the home screen. So instead of placing this code here, we can just use the feeds widget, grid widget like this. And of course, we need to pass in the products list. So let's say product list like this. And we need to do the same for this one. So I'll copy this and then go here. And now we can paste it for this one, but it's kind of different from the other one. So I'll just keep it like this for this one. And now for this code, let's remove this const. And we also need to get the data. So let's convert it to a stateful widget. And then same as what we did in the home screen, we need to initialize this list like this, and we need to initialize these functions like this, and of course we need to import the classes like this, and now we can use this list in order to be passed here for the items here. Okay, so let's say product list, and we can access the index in here, and then we can call the images and access the first image. Then we need to access the title, and for the title we need to access it just the same way as this one. So let's say title.toString, and now in here we need to do an alt checker, and that's it. Now restart the application and let's test everything. It was a lot of work, and now I got an error in here. Let's go to the home screen, and in here let's call setState and paste it here, and now restart the application and let's see if it will work. Okay, so when I did like this, now we are fetching the products, but we are still getting an error. So simply we can do a small check about this product list. If it is empty, we can show something else. So we can show a container, and now if I save it, I will not see any error. Restart the application and let's make sure. I didn't get any error. We need to do the same in here. So we can do it like this in here also. So save this one also and go to the feeds screen. And now I don't have any product. And in here we need to add the set state. Now save it also. And in here we have these items. So let's go back, go here again. And now I have these results. And of course we can show a loading spinner, for example, but we'll manage it later on in this course. And for the length, I will use the product list length. And now save it and go back to our application. And I have now a lot of things, but I cannot scroll it. So we need to fix this. We need to remove this from the feeds screen. Okay, so now I can scroll it and it's working fine. Now, one more thing before that I end this tutorial is to go to the feeds screen, and let's use this title for the title here, like this. And now it's not const anymore. So let's add the const keyword here, and same for the image URL. So let's say image URL like this. Now restart the application and let's test it. Here it is. Now it is working correctly. Okay, now we are displaying the correct title and the correct image URL. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. And the next tutorial, I will show you a different way in order to not pass the data like this. So we will use a simple state management in order to do this using the provider. And it's gonna be very basic, but it will make our work easier. Again, if you need more detailed things and more advanced things, you should check the news API course on the Udemy, and I will leave for you a discount link so you can get it from there. So that's it for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. Hi guys, so our application looks something like this, and in this tutorial I will do some improvement for the code while we are reading the products. So for example, if I go to this screen, to the feeds screen, as you can see, we have an empty screen, then our products will be fetched. I don't want this behavior. It would be nice if we show the user some progress indicator, for example. So for that, I will return in here a center, and as a child, I will give it a circular progress indicator. So we can say circular progress indicator like this, and that's it. Let's add the const keyword here. And now if I restart the application and test it again, we should see a circular progress indicator. So here it is, as you can see, and this is way more better. Now, the other improvement that I want to use is in the home screen. So in the home screen, previously we used this did change dependencies. Anyways, it's very similar to the init state, as both of them run directly when you open that screen. But the difference between these two is that the did change dependencies, it will be called whenever you call the set state. So in my case, I will comment this for you, and I will comment this also. So of course we got an error here. So what I'm gonna do is to remove this, and I will call this line of code, and now I will initialize a future builder widget. And this future builder widget, it takes a future and a builder, and this widget is really recommended to be used in such cases because we can manage a lot of things in it. The connection states, if we have an error, and so on. And now I will show you. In here, of course, it takes a context and something called snapshot. And then we need to return something in here. Of course, we need to give it the method, which is the future, as you can see. So in here, let's say future. And then as a future, we need to give it our function. So let's call the API handler and call the get all products. Anyways, we could do something else that we can also use this method. But in my case, I want to make it more general for you. So this is why I will use the other approach in order to show you new things. Anyways, you can specify the type of this future builder, and in our case, we want a list of products model like this, and this is the same type as the list that we initialized at the beginning in here. Perfect. So now we can return something, but first we can do small checks. So the first check I want to use is that check the connection state. So we have something called connection state, and you have active, done, waiting, and so on. So we can call the snapshot and check its connection state, and we can check it if it is waiting. We can show, for example, a circular progress indicator. So let's say if it's waiting here, so we return a center, and then let's say child and circular progress indicator as a child. Like this. Let's add the const keyword. Now we're still having an error here because we didn't return anything yet. So we can add the return line here, and we can return here our feeds grid widget, which is this one. And of course, this return line, it should be here inside of the future builder. Now we don't have this product list, but we can access it from the snapshot. So we can call snapshot.data, and now as you can see, we have the length. Okay, now let's do a null check about it, and now the error is gone. I want to show you something is that if we remove this, the suggestions will be different and we will get an error here. So if I remove this and press Ctrl space, we will have less suggestions. Okay, so make sure to add the type here. Now let's improve the code more, and this can be done also by adding some other if statements. So we can check about if it has an error. So we can call the snapshot and check if it has an error, for example, by calling has error, and this is a boolean. So as you can see, it is a boolean, and if this is the case, we can return, for example, a text here that says an error occurred, and you can do something cool, which is that you can access the snapshot error directly like this. And of course, we need to remove this const. Perfect. So now one more thing is that we can check if the data is null. So if we don't have any product, we can also do something. So I will copy this or all of this and then paste it here. And now we can check if the data is equal to null. And now let's say, for example, no products. Okay, something like this. And now let's test it. Now restart the application and let's see what will happen. Perfect. So as you can see, we have the loading spinner, then we got this. Hi guys, in this section, we will improve our code and we will use the provider state management in order to do this. But please keep in mind that it will be very basic and very simple. And if you want to know more about the state management, you should check the other courses on Udemy. So I strongly recommend you this one, the Flutter grocery app, and then the Flutter REST API crash course. And these two courses, I covered the provider state management and details. So you will have a lot of contents about the state management. Now let's go back to our code and let's start working on it. So in the home screen, we have this feeds grid widget, and previously we passed in this product list. And if we go to the feeds grid widget, we also pass in this image URL title to this feeds widget. And we need to display also the correct price and so on. And we need the ID also. So if we keep passing data through the constructor, it will be very annoying. And we passed this product list to this screen because we needed it just to pass it in to the feeds widget. And this is make it more annoying. So we need a way to avoid this. And this can be done easily by using the provider state management. So let's go to the product model and let's call the mixin change notifier. And this change notifier will help us to keep listening to the changes. So now if I go to the feeds widget, and in here we can initialize the provider, and in order to initialize it, it's gonna be of type products model. So let's name it products model provider, and it will be equal to the provider. And of course, in order to use the provider, we need to get it from the pubspec.yaml file. So let's go to the browser, and in here, let's go to the pub.dev, and then let's search for the provider package. And of course, I strongly recommend you to read the documentation for it. So let's go now to the installing tab, and then let's copy this and come back to our pubspec.yaml file, and then paste it here and save your code. Anyways, after installing any package, I strongly recommend you to cut the process, then run your application again. So now we should have access to it. So I will import it like this, and then call of context, and that's it. But we need to specify the type of this provider, and this can be done by adding this in here and just type products model. So now we have this products model provider. And if I copy this and now paste it here and press dot, now you have access to all of the arguments inside of this product model. So instead of passing this data in here, we can remove it. And we need to remove it also from the constructor. So like this. And now, of course, we got errors in here for the image URL. We can call it like this now. And let's do a null checker. And then we need to call the title for this one. Call .string like this. Let's add the const keyword here. And we need to also change the price. So this one. So for that, let's say product model. And we can access the price in here. Now we're still having an error in the feeds grid in here. So let's remove this. And we're still having an error in the feeds screen also in here. So let's remove it. And now I will restart the application, or just run it because I cut the process when I installed the provider package. So now it is running, and I will resume the video when it's done. Okay, so the process is now done, and we are having an error. Now, if I scroll up in this error, so the error looks something like this. And basically this error, you might face it a lot while you are learning about the provider, and this can be fixed easily. Okay, so in here, as you can see, it says we couldn't find the correct provider above of the feeds widget. So you need to understand how the provider works exactly. So about the provider, it is basically a listener. And in order to keep listening to a widget, you need to be the parent of this widget. So above of the feeds widget, since we initialized our provider in it, so as this feeds widget, we initialized this products provider. So above of this widget, we need to add the provider in order to be able to listen to the changes and provide it to the feeds widget. Okay, and These things I explained in details in my other courses. But as I said, I want to keep it simple for this course. Now, in order to fix it, let's go to the fields grid. And in here, we can wrap it by a new widget, which is the change notifier dot value. And in here, you need to give it a value. And our value is going to be the product list. So we can pass it like this. And in the fields screen, we also need to pass something. So we have also the product list. So in here, let's wrap it by change notifier provider dot value, and then we can call value and give it the product list, and we need to give it the index in here. In here, I gave it 0. It should be index like this. Now restart the application and it should work. Perfect. So here it is. Now it is working fine. Okay, so instead of passing data through the constructor, and we call it dependency injection, we used a better method in order to access the data. And now, as you can see, we have different prices. Okay, let's check this screen. It is also like this. We have the different products, different titles, and different prices. Okay, and later on, we will fix also the details screen. In this tutorial, I will show you how can we fetch and display the categories. We already did the same for the product, so I strongly recommend you to do it by your own, then watch this tutorial. Now let's go back to our application, and in here we have it like this. So let's start writing the code for it. If you remember, in the API documentation and in here for the categories, we need to use this URL, in order to get the categories. So we have an ID for the category, we have the name and the image. We are interested in the name and the images. And if you remember, we created already the category model for it. So now what I'm gonna do is to go to the products model. Then I will copy this function and then come back and paste it here. And of course, it will be of type categories model, and we need to name it something else. So let's change it to categories. And now in the API handler, just like we did in here, we can copy it and paste it once more. And now let's say get all categories like this. And in here, it should be categories. If you remember, here it is like this. And of course, it will be of type categories model. And now we need to call the categories model categories from snapshot that we created. And we have a typo in the name, so let's I'll just fix it. Okay, so I fixed it, and now let's fix this name, and that's it. Now, if you may notice, we have the same function, but we only have difference between the URLs. So we can minimize our code by making this function dynamic. And this function, it can be done easily. So we can say, for example, let's initialize a new function and let's name it get data. So let's say in here, get data like this. And of course, we need to return something, and the list will be of type dynamic. And now we need to return something in here. So what I'm gonna do is to copy all of this, then paste it here. And now let's pass in a string, and let's name it target. And we need to add the required keyword. And now the target can be used here. And later on, this method will be used in order to fetch the data and the categories. So still one thing left to be done is to return in here the temp list. Okay, so basically what I'm doing in here is to send a request to the API, and I'm returning the list. Now this list, it can be used directly to return a product model or categories model. So what I'm gonna do is to remove these now, and we can call directly this method, the getData method. So now in here, let's initialize a list, and I will name it temp, and it will be equal to the getData method, and we need to specify the target, and in this case, it will be products. like this. And now we can return in here the temp list, just like this. Now, instead of repeating this function for the categories, we can remove all of this. And I can copy this line of code now, and in here we can pass in the categories. Okay, and now we can use this temp here. Now I will restart the application, and let's see if I will get an error, because we are fetching the products here, and we got the product, and I got no errors. Now we can proceed, and we can use this function inside of this screen. So just like we did for the home screen to fetch the products, we can copy this future builder. So let's copy it here, and then we can paste it in the categories screen like this, and let's cut this grid view, and instead of this feeds grid widget, we can paste our code, and we need to fix a few other things. In here we need to use the categories model, and then for the API handler we need to call it, and for the function we need to call the get all categories like this. Now restart the application, and let's see if it will work. Okay, let's try it. It seems that it's working correctly, but we need to pass in the correct data. So let's start doing this. And in order to do this, we can access the categories model directly in the categories widget. So just like we did in here, we initialize this product model provider. So we can do the same for the categories screen. Categories widget. So in here we can initialize the categories model. So let's say in here categories model like this, and let me change this name, and now import the provider. We don't have to specify the type of it since we already did it in here. So now if I hover here on it, as you can see, it is of type categories model. Now this provider, it can be used directly in order to show the category name and the image. So in here we call the name .toString, and down below or in here we can use the image .toString like this. And now if I restart it and come to this screen, I will get an error. Of course, this error, I think you remember why, because we need to add the provider above of this widget. So in the categories screen, simply we can wrap it by the change notifier provider.value, so this one, and then we need to provide a value, and for the value we can access the snapshot.data and give it the index. So let's say in here like this, and we need to do an null check in here. Even when I added this snapshot, we're still having an error in here, and this error is coming because we didn't add the change notifier mixin for the categories model. So if you remember in here, I told you about this mixin, so we must add it in order to not get any error. In here, we need to import the material package, and now restart the application, and it should work. Let's test that. Here it is. Now it's working correctly. So that's it for this tutorial. See you in the next one. Hi guys, so in the last tutorial we have finished fetching and displaying the categories on the screen. Now we will do something very similar in order to fetch the users. So if we go now to the REST API documentation, in here it says how can we get the users. So if we made a request for this URL, we will get these results. So let's try it in the postman. So in here, you need to create a new request, then it will be of type get, then send it. And now I got these results. Control A and Control C in order to copy it. Then Google for JSON to Dart as usual. Then go to this link and paste your JSON data. In here, name your class. I will name it users model. Then generate the Dart model. I will copy this, then come back. And in the model folder, I will create a new file, and I will name it users_model.dart. In here, I can paste my code. We don't need this to JSON, so I will just delete it. And I will keep it like this for now. Now, let me go back to the postman. So in here, you have the avatar as an image, then you have the role, and you have the name, and you have the email. So we can use it in order to display our users. Now let's go to the categories screen and let's copy this method, and then we can paste it here like this, and let's change this type to users model, and let's change this categories to users like this. Now, just like we did for the categories and products, we can copy this function and now paste it one more time in order to get all users. Okay, so you can now notice how easy it is if you refactor your function and just use it by one line of code. In here, we need to change this to users and change this categories model in order to get the users model, and in here call the users from snapshot. Now let's go to the categories screen and copy all of this, then go to the users screen, paste it here, and now change the name again to users screen like this, and change the title to users. And of course, we don't have to get this grid view. We need to use the users widget like this. Okay, now let's add const keyword, and in here we can initialize the provider. So first, in the users model, we need to add in here the change notifier mixin. Then we need to initialize the provider just like we did in here. So I'll paste it here and change the type to be users model, and we need to import the provider package. And now we can use this users model provider in order to display our data. So in here we can call the avatar .toString, and then in here the user role, and in here the name, and let's remove this const. And finally in here we need to display also the email. So let's say email.toString and remove this const. Now if I restart and test the application, let's see now. As usual, now I have to add the provider above of this widget. So inside of the user screen, let's wrap this by change notifier provider dot value, and then in here we need to give it the value. So let's call the snapshot dot data and give it the index. And of course, this user widget, it should be inside of a list. So we need to add the list again. So I will cut our code after formatting it correctly. So I will cut this, then initialize a list, view.builder, then we need to give it the item builder. So let's pass in the context and the index, and now we can return what we have. And of course, we need to specify the item count. So let's call the snapshot.data, and we call the length like this. Now if I restart the application, let's see. Okay, we still have an error. I should change this function also. So let's change it here, and we can call in here get all users. Now save it and it will work. Here it is. Now it is working correctly. Okay, so if I restart it to make sure again, we have everything here. Hi guys, in this tutorial, let's finish up the product details screen. So we need to fetch the correct information for each product. In order to do this, we will use the API handler, and we need to open the product details screen. And the API handler, we need to write the function in order to get the correct data for each product. So before that, we start writing our code. Let's go to the website, and in the products tab, if you scroll down, in here you have this get a single product. So you can get the product by ID. So we need to use this link or this URL in order to fetch the correct information for the product. So what I'm gonna do is to copy this function, and I will paste it here, and then I will say in here get product by ID. like this. And we also need a string to be passed, and I will name it ID in here. And then the target in this case, it will be the products, and then we will have the ID here, like this. So we have the products here, and then we have the ID, and this is what I did. Now what I'm gonna do is to show you the response and the postman. So for that, I will copy this and go to the postman and paste it here and hit send. And now in here I have only one product. We have the ID, title, and so on. If I choose another ID, for example, 200, send, I got another product and the information will be different. If you choose, for example, another number, I will get an error because this ID doesn't exist. Okay, so let's go back to our code. And now the response, it will not be a list, it will be of type product model, like this. Now, of course, I got an error here because we don't have to return this temp list. We need to return the correct data. So I will remove this list, and in here we can call the products model.from JSON, and we can pass in our data. Of course, we didn't yet implement the error handling, and the next tutorials we will implement it, so don't worry about it now. Now this method, it can be used directly in the product details screen. So in here we can write our function in order to get the results. So the best place to write it is, we can do it actually in the init state, but I prefer to do it in the change dependencies. So let's initialize a future of type void, and we can name it, for example, get product info, like this. And then in here we need to call the API handler and use it. So what I'm gonna do is to initialize something called product, and it's going to be of type products model, of course, and it can be null, like this. And we can put now the product equal to the API handler dot get product by ID. And this ID we need to pass it, and this product model I will paste it here to avoid the error. So we need, as I said, we need to use the ID, and we can directly pass it by the constructor to here. So let's say final string ID, and now let's add it to the constructor here, just like this. Now, of course, I got an error in the feeds widget, and we can remove now this const from here, and then we can pass in the ID. The ID, of course, we can access it directly from this product model provider. So let's call it in here, call the ID, then call .toString, just like this. Now in the product details, we don't have this ID yet since I initialize it in here, but in order to access this ID, because it's outside of our state class and it is a stateful widget, so we need to call the widget .id, like this. Now this product model, it can be accessed and we can use it in here. So I can access directly the category. So let's remove the const from here, and let's call the .toString, and let's do a null check. Now in here we need to paste the title, and then in here we need to take the price. So if you remember, we have a list of images, so I will use one in here. And in here we have 3 different images, for example, and it is a list. So we need to display it, and we have this index. So we can directly call the product model dot images, and we can use the index that we want. And the index is coming from here, from this builder, and then let's call .toString to it. And now let's do a null check in here, like this. Now let's scroll down. We still have to add the description. So let's say product model.description.toString, just like this, and remove this const from here, like this. Now before that I test it, I want to show a circular progress indicator when we are fetching the results. So simply this can be done by adding, for example, doing a small check about this product model. If it is equal to null, it means that our code didn't get executed yet. So in here we can show a center, and let's give it a circular progress indicator like this, and let's add the const keyword. And now let's restart the application and let's see if it will work or not. So let's press here. Now I have the circular progress indicator and it is stuck. Of course, this method we need to call it in the did change dependencies. So let's call it in here just like this. And now save or restart the application, and I will start it to see what will happen. And now press here, and again it is stuck. So this product's model is still null. It's not being set to the new value. So we also need to fix this. So we need to reset the state whenever this value changes. So when this value, the product's model value changes, I want to reset our state in order to rebuild our widget. So now I restarted the application and let's see what will happen. Here it is. Now it's working correctly. Okay, so let's try another product. As you can see, it is working just fine. For the all products also, all is good. It's working correctly. Okay, so this was for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one. Hi guys, in this tutorial we will work with the error handling. So in here I made an error and I got a response like this. So we have the status code, we have the message, we have the error. So this error says bad request, and we have this message, so we can show it to the user, for example, in order to show him a friendly error. And here we have the response. So let's go back to our code and we can use this. And in here, for example, we can do a small check inside of the get data. In here, we can do a small check about the response status code. So in here, we can call the response.status code and check if it is different than 200. And if this is the case, we can say throw. So the code won't execute after this line of code. And in here, we can throw the data message. So in here, we call the message because we have it in here. Okay. Just like this. And now we can wrap all of this code also by a try catch. So what I'm gonna do is to cut this, then add a try catch block, and will help us to also handle the errors. Okay, so we paste our code here, and in here let's say log an error occurred like this, and then we can call the error like this. Okay, so that's it for this method, and we're still having an error because we also need to throw something if we have an error. So in here I will say throw error.toString like this, and now the error is gone. Now we need to do the same for the method that we are getting the product detail in it, so this one. So what I will do is to cut these lines of code and add a try catch block, and let's say error in here, and let's say throw the error.toString, and it would be nice if we say in here an error occurred while getting product info, for example, and then we print the error like this. And in here I will paste our code, and that's it. Now we implemented the error handling. Now what I will do to try to test it is to access, for example, another ID in here. So let's say any number, try to restart the application, and let's see what will happen. Okay, our code is still working. Let's go to this product, and now we have an error printed in here, and this is very nice. Of course, we need to do the same as what we did in here. So I will copy this line to do a small check about the response, so we can paste it here. And I will start the application, and let's test it again, and let's see what will happen. So let's check. Now I got another error here. So in the product details, we also need to put this method in a try catch. So we need to call try catch in here. So let's call it here and catch the error. And let's say error here. And let's log this error like this. And now let's restart and test the application again. And let's see what will happen. Okay, so now let's go to any of these products and let's see what will happen. And perfect. Now we have this error in here. So this error is coming from here. So it says product not found. So this line is actually coming from the message. Okay, so let's check now this error. And in here, as you can see, it says product not found. Okay, and if you add any other character, you will get another type of error, which is this one. So in this case, we are showing the user a friendly message. Anyway, we are just logging it in here. We can, for example, print it. And in any case, for example, there is many ways in order to do this, but I'll just show you a simple approach. We can just initialize, for example, a Boolean, and let's say is error in here, and let's put it initially equal to false, and if not, let's put it here equal to true. So let's say is error equal true, like this. And now we can do a small check about this. So in here, we can check if it is error, and I will copy this. And instead of this circular progress indicator, we can show a text. And in here, we can say an error occurred. And of course, you don't have to do all of this work like this. You can just use a future builder, as I showed you previously. But I'm also trying to show you another approach. And there is many ways in order to handle this. You can also show a dialogue, for example. But for me, I will just show a text in the middle of the screen. So in here, I will do styling for it to give it some font weight, for example, and font size. So for the font size, I will use 25, and for the font weight, I will use 500. So like this, and of course, it would be nice if we print the error. So what I'm gonna do is to initialize in here a string, and let's say error, and initially I'll put it equal to nothing, and then we can put this error equal to the error here. We don't actually have to call setState in here because we are calling it in here. So I will remove it and then paste the error str, and then we can put it equal to the error and call .string to it. Now we can use this error str in here like this, and it's not const anymore, so let's remove it and add the const keyword here. And now let's restart the application and let's see what will happen. Okay, let's go. And here it is. Now it's working fine. It says an error occurred, product not found. Now, if I go, for example, to this method and let's add any character in here, so plus or minus, and restart the application, and I will get another message. So let's see. Here it is. Now I'm getting another error message, which is just the same as this one. Okay, so by this tutorial, I showed you how can you handle error in an efficient way. So now what I'm gonna do is to revert the changes here. Call the ID in here. So let's fix it, and I will test the application to make sure that it's working now. And it is working correctly. I will keep the code now just like this for you to review it, and I will keep it with the logs. Okay, and I just find out that for the categories model, we are showing this. Of course, we need to fix it. I'll just fix it now directly because it won't take much time. So let's go to the products detail, search for category, and in here we need to call the category.name. And of course, let's do an alt check, save it, and now I will have the correct in here. Okay, let's test another one. Here it is. Now we have others, for example, Let's check this. Now we have shoes. Okay, so our application is working perfectly now. And in the next tutorial, what I will do is to start implementing the pagination. So instead of fetching all of these products directly, we will fetch, for example, 10 products each time. So when the user arrives until the end of this list, we will fetch the other 10 other products. Okay, so I'll see you in the next one. Hi guys, in this tutorial we will implement the pagination. So before that we start writing our code, I want you to understand what pagination means exactly. So if I navigate to the all products screen and now I scroll until the end, here I arrived until the end and then I fetched more products. So every time I arrive until the end, I'm fetching more products. Here it is, as you can see. So we need to implement this now in our application. So for that, I will go to our application, and if I go to my application now, I have all the products directly in here. So I'm fetching all of the products in here, and this is very bad for the performance. So imagine that Amazon or AliExpress or Facebook are doing the same way. So they are fetching everything, all the posts or all the products and the same request. It will take a huge amount of time and it will slower the application. So now if I scroll down, I can scroll almost all the products, and I don't want this behavior. So let's now go to the documentation of the REST API, and in the products tab, if you scroll down or if you search for the pagination, you can find it here, and here is the URL that you need to use, and it is a get method. So now we have the offset, which is basically means the page number, and we have the limit, so the limit per each page. What I'm gonna do to make it clear for you, I will test it in the postman. So I will copy this, then go to the postman and paste it here. And now if I hit send, actually I'm gonna change this number to 1 to make it clear for you. So now I will have only one item. Now what I'm gonna do is to change this offset also to 1, and now send, and now I got another product with ID 3. So I think now you understand what we need to do. So once the user arrives until the end, we need to change one of these values. So what I'm gonna do is to fix the offset. I will fix it on 0, and then for the limit, it will be a variable. So every time the user arrives until the end, I want to change the value in here. So every time the user arrives at the end, I will add 10 more products until the user arrives until the end. Okay, so if I type in here 2, I will get 2 different products. Okay, so now we can use this in our application. So what I'm gonna do is to go back to our code, and in here, inside of the API handler, for the get data in here, we can do it. So if we go back to the documentation in here, I have this interrogation mark. So these called query parameters. So if I go back now to our code and hover on the HTTPS, now in here you can pass in this query parameters, which is a map. So in here I can type it like this, but of course we need this case only if we are passing products. I don't want it for the categories. So what we need to do actually is to check if the target equal to products, like this. And if this is the case, we need to pass in our map, but if not, we can pass in an empty map. So in here, we need to pass in the offset and the limit. So you can copy the offset from here to make sure that the name is correct. And for the offset, we need to pass in a string. To not pass in an integer, it must be a string. So in here, as I said, I will fix it to 0, while the limit, it will be variable. So for the limit, we can pass in something in here, and it can be nullable because I want it only in one case, which is for the products. I don't want it for the categories or for the users. So in here, let's define this limit, and now this limit, it can be used here. Now, of course, for this get all products, we need to pass in the limit. So let's say required string limit. And now for the get data, we need to pass it here like this. Of course, now we got errors inside of the home screen and inside of the feeds screen. And the home screen, as I said, I want it fixed. So let's use 3. And of course, it should be string. So I can type it like this, but of course we can just type it string like this. Okay, so now let's go to the feeds screen. And in the feeds screen, of course, we got an error here. And as I said, in here, we need to type in the correct code for the pagination. So what we can do is to pass in the limit here. And then for this limit, as I said, it's going to be a variable. So we can initialize in here an int, and I will name it limit. And initially, I'll put it equal to 10. And every time the user arrives until the end of the grid view or list, I will fetch more items. Now let's initialize a boolean while it is loading. So while we are fetching more products, we can show a spinner, for example, at the bottom. So this will be helpful. And in here, I will put it to false. And then I will also initialize another boolean, and I will name it as limit. And this will tell us if the store has more products or not. Okay, so if the user arrive until the end of each product, we don't have to fetch more items, and we don't have to show any spinner anymore. Perfect. So now we need to keep listening to the grid view. So we need to understand when the user arrive at the end. I mean, we need to know when the user arrive at the end, and this can be done easily actually. So in here, let me pass in this limit, and of course it should be string. So let's call it string like this, and that's it. Now we need a scroll controller in order to keep listening to it. So what I'm gonna do is to initialize a scroll controller. So let's say scroll controller like this, and let's name it scroll controller, and we need to initialize it like this. Now this scroll controller, it can be used as a controller for this grid view, and we can pass in our controller. Now simply by using this controller, we can access or know if the user arrived at the end or not, and now I will show you how. So for the did change dependencies, we can use it now. And anyways, previously I was fetching this get products and the did change dependencies, but I changed it. It's not a big deal. So let's say did change dependencies. And now in here, we need to call the scroll controller, and then we add a listener to it like this. And then I will add the async keyword in here because we will call the get products method. Now inside of this method in here, we can do an if statement to check if the user arrived at the end of the grid view or not. So we call the scroll controller dot position, and then we call dot pixel, and now we check if it is equal to the max scroll extent, so like this. And if this is the case, we need to put the is loading to true. Like this. And we need to add to the limit 10 more items. So we can say plus equal 10 like this. So basically this means that I'm adding 10 each time for the limit. And now I need to call the method. So in order to fetch the products like this. And is loading, we need to put it again to false, of course. Now, of course, since we initialized this scroll controller, we need to dispose it. So we call the scroll controller, and we call dispose to it like this. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do actually is to print the limit. So let's say in here limit like this, and actually I will use log in order to show it in the yellow color. And for the log, we need to import the Dart developer. Now I will start the application, and let's see what will happen. So basically now I will fetch 10 orders because 10 products, I mean, because we are passing the limit here. So here is our application. Let's go here. Let's scroll. And now I can't scroll because I added these two different lines for the grid view. We need to remove it. And the previous code, it was commented also, so don't worry. Now I removed it and we can test it again. So now I arrived until the end. And here it is working fine. So every time I arrive until the end, the limit is getting changed, as you can see, and we are fetching more items. Now what left is to show the circular progress indicator. So this can be done by wrapping by this grid view by a column. And of course, now we need this shrink wrap and this physics to avoid the overflow error inside of the column. Or you need to wrap it by expanded widget, but I'll just keep it like this and wrap this column by a single child scroll view. So in here we call this single child scroll view, and now this controller, it must be for the scrollable widget, which is the single child scroll view. So we need to pass it for this widget. Okay, now below of this grid view, we need to show the spinner. So we can check in here if it is loading, so we can show a spinner at the end. So in here we can call the center, then show a circular progress indicator like this, and let's add the const keyword here. Now if I restart the application, let's see what will happen. So let's go, scroll down, and now the progress is very fast, so I cannot see it. So what can we do actually is to try to put it to true, and now save it because I want to show it to you. And for the limit, I will keep it like this. And now restart the application and let's see what will happen, because I want to show you how it looks like. Okay, so here it is, as you can see. And this behavior, it's not working good enough. So even while loading our product, we need to arrive until the end to show it. So for that, what can we do actually is to call the isLimit, and without using this isLoading, we can remove it. And for the isLimit, we can check in here if the limit, for example, equal to 200. Of course, the limit number, it will be different. You can depends on how many items you want to put it equal to. So if the limit equal to 100, which is I think this API gave us around 200 items, so we can set the isLimit to true like this. So now we can do a small check about the isLimit. So if the isLimit is equal to false, we need to show the center and circular progress indicator. Okay, so now restart the application and let's see what will happen. Let's go now, scroll down. Here it is, now we have it here. And of course, I'm not adding anything now to the limit. So let's add and test it once more. So now I will save it and let's see. Okay, I will restart it to make sure. So now let's go here and scroll down. And here it is, now it's working perfectly. Okay, so if I arrive at the end, okay, so now I arrived at 200. And as you can see, when I arrive at the end, I keep fetching products. And this is wrong. So what basically is happening is that we are setting the isLimit to true. So I cannot see the circular progress indicator anymore, but we're still calling this getProduct function. Of course, if this is the case in here, we need to return. We don't want to execute this line of code. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is to change this number to 30 and test it again and make sure that it's working correctly. And now let's go to the all products, scroll down here. I can see this spinner, and then here I arrived until the end. I didn't fetch more products, but we still can see the circular progress indicator. So this means that this isLimit value didn't change. And actually this is normal. Previously we had this code here, around here, and we didn't call this return. So actually this getProducts method was called every time. And inside of this getProducts method, we have this setState. So we are setting our state again, and we are rebuilding our widgets, and we are updating the values. So this limit value will be set to true. So basically what can we do to fix this is to call this setState in here. Okay, so now restart the application and let's test it once more and let's see what will happen. So let's go to the all products. Now scroll down. Here it is, I arrived. And now I can see the progress indicator and I fetched more products. And in here I arrived until the end. And now we don't see the circular progress indicator and I don't see more products anymore. Okay, so that's it for this tutorial. I hope that everything was clear for you in this course and I hope that you like it. And if you did, please leave a 5-star rating. And if you have any suggestions, please feel free to reach me so I can update this course and I can consider it for my future courses. Don't forget also to star the repo on GitHub, and by this way the course and everything will arrive to the maximum number of students and we will share the knowledge around the world. So that's it for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next one.